Tricia thought she had finally reached the finish line in her long, messy story with Marquez. After years of fighting, arguing, and living in constant drama, the divorce papers were finally signed. The ink was still fresh, but instead of peace, another storm was waiting for her. What she didn't realize was that the real battle wasn't ending, it was just beginning. People around her thought the divorce would bring freedom and calm, but the court had other plans. Instead of relief, Tricia was handed a legal order filled with strict rules and heavy restrictions. Custody battles, drug tests, living arrangements, and a ticking clock were all thrown at her like a bomb. And to make things even harder, her relationship with Ken, the man who had been standing by her side, was dragged right into the middle of it. Let's start with the so-called victory. On paper, Tricia won primary custody of her daughter. At first glance, that looked like a win. She would be the main parent, the one her daughter lived with day to day. But the fine print changed everything. The judge made it clear that Marquez could only see his daughter under certain conditions. He wasn't allowed overnight visits unless he proved he was living a stable life. That meant he needed his own home with bills in his name, and not one, not two, but 3 clean drug tests in a row. Only after meeting those strict rules would he even be considered for overnight custody. Now, the drug test requirement didn't just appear out of thin air. Courts don't place restrictions like that unless someone raises serious concerns. Maybe Tricia brought up her worries, maybe another person did, but either way, the judge believed there was enough reason to question Marquez's lifestyle. That wasn't just messy drama, it was serious, potentially dangerous. Because if he couldn't meet those requirements, overnight visits with his own daughter were completely off the table. No excuses, no half measures, no I'm trying. Just a cold, hard no. While all eyes were on Marquez, Ken suddenly found himself dragged into the chaos. The court slipped in another shocking condition. Tricia was not allowed to live with any romantic partner unless they were legally married. That meant no, we're just dating, no, he's helping me out, no, it's complicated. If Ken wanted to stay under Tricia's roof, he needed to be her husband legally and officially. And the court didn't leave room for stalling. They set a deadline. By 5:00 p.m. on August 25th, Ken had to either be married to Tricia or out of the house. No extensions, no grace period, no second chances. The ruling hit Ken like a punch to the chest. He was a truck driver, constantly on the road, and while he spent most of his time with Tricia, he could technically argue that he was just visiting. But where do you really draw that line? If he kept his clothes there, stocked food in the fridge, and slept over regularly, wouldn't that count as living there? The court left that open for interpretation, but one thing was clear: people were watching closely. If Marquez wanted leverage in the custody battle, this was the perfect weapon. The court didn't stop there. They went into full lockdown mode. Another major rule was put in place: Tricia and Marquez's daughter was banned from appearing on the reality show. Not her name, not her face, nothing. Total blackout. For the show, this was a huge blow. That child had often been at the center of the drama caught between handoffs, arguments, and emotional moments. Without her, producers would have to scramble for new storylines. But for once, it seemed like the court actually made the right call. The little girl deserved a break from cameras, chaos, and constant exposure. Still, while the child was being protected, Tricia and Ken were left under the hottest spotlight yet. The court order didn't just create rules, it created ultimatums. And for a woman with a history of hesitation when it came to marriage, the new law was like a ticking time bomb. Ken was blindsided. One day, he was a stable, supportive partner, helping raise Tricia's daughter, paying bills, fixing up the house, and being a steady hand in her stormy life. The next, he was told that he was no longer welcome unless he had a wedding ring on his finger. With just one court signature, he went from dependable partner to unauthorized occupant. To make things worse, Tricia wasn't giving him a straight answer. One moment she said she needed more time. The next, she hinted that maybe they could set a date. But time was no longer on their side. The deadline had already passed, and Ken had technically violated the order just by staying a few nights between trucking routes. That put both of them in dangerous territory. The fear of getting caught hung over Ken like a cloud. Was Tricia stalling on purpose? Was she secretly hoping he would just walk away so she wouldn't have to make the decision herself? The paranoia ate at him. Meanwhile, Marquez wasn't sitting quietly. He started spreading rumors that he was planning to petition for full custody. His argument? That Tricia had violated the court's order by allowing Ken to stay in the house after the deadline. Whether or not Marquez could win that case was unclear, but the threat itself was enough to shake Tricia. Behind closed doors, tensions between Tricia and Ken reached a breaking point. For the first time, Ken began questioning everything. Was he the fool in love? Or was he just the backup plan until something better came along? He confided in his friend Will, who didn't hold back. "Bro, if she really wanted to marry you, it would have happened last year," Will told him. "This ain't about the court. This is about her not wanting to commit." Deep down, Ken knew that was the truth. Tricia had leaned on him for years, but when it came to locking things down, she always dodged the conversation. Now that marriage was a necessity, her hesitation spoke volumes. And while she was dragging her feet in private, she was still smiling for the cameras, throwing brunches, posting quotes about protecting peace, and acting like everything was fine. But the reality was far from fine. Behind those curated posts was a woman caught between a custody war, a court order, and a partner she wasn't sure she wanted to marry. The streets of Huntsville were buzzing. People whispered that Tricia might already be eyeing someone new, someone who didn't come with the baggage of legal drama and court rules. Whether it was true or not, the rumors only added fuel to Ken's doubts. Eventually, Ken stopped asking about wedding plans. He stopped pushing. He started paying attention to her actions instead of her words. And what he saw was a woman in no hurry to make a choice. So he made one for himself. One Monday morning, before heading back on the road, Ken left a note on Tricia's kitchen counter. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't angry, it was just real. "You've had my heart," the note said, "but I need to know you want it. I can't be your maybe anymore." When Tricia found it that evening, she sat in silence. No tears, no yelling, no chasing after him. Just quiet. That silence spoke louder than any fight ever could. As Ken drifted out of her life, Marquez was stepping back in, at least where custody was concerned. He finally secured a rental property, put utilities in his name, and passed 2 out of 3 drug tests. By the end of the week, he cleared the final one. With all 3 completed, he filed a motion for overnight visits. The court set a review hearing, and suddenly, the custody dynamic was about to shift. This time, Tricia was alone. At the next reunion taping, she arrived without Ken. No ring, no explanations, just a carefully styled outfit, a practiced smile, and her usual glass of wine. But anyone watching closely could see the truth. Her hands trembled slightly, and there was no sparkle on her left finger. Backstage, someone asked if it was really over with Ken. She let out a long breath and said, "I guess we'll see." But the answer was already clear: Ken wasn't coming back. Meanwhile, Marquez walked into court looking more put together than he had in years. For him, this wasn't just about visitation rights anymore. It was about proving himself, reclaiming relevance, and maybe even getting revenge. Because in Huntsville, nobody stays down for long. They don't quit. They reload. And Tricia, caught between love, legality, and her own fear of commitment, was about to find out that her battle with Marquez was far from over. At the end of the day, this story isn't just about divorce papers, custody battles, or court orders. It's about 3 people whose lives are tangled in choices, regrets, and unfinished business. Tricia thought freedom would come with her divorce, but now she's standing alone, facing new battles without Ken by her side. Marquez, once written off, is trying to rebuild his life step by step, fighting for the chance to prove he can be a present father. And Ken, the man who gave years of loyalty, walked away with nothing but a broken heart and the hope that maybe one day he'll find the commitment he never got from Tricia.